What is up, Facebook land? Welcome to another episode of the Two Dates and a Dash podcast. I'm your host, Matt Cubbler, and before I introduce my very special guest and good friend, Brandon Noble, I want to first dedicate a show, as I always do. Most of you know Brandon is a Penn State grad, and Penn State had a really good winter sports season, and Penn State wrestling, once again, I think 9 years straight as national champions. They're just an amazing wrestling powerhouse program that it's really fun to see their success and you know, these kids that are recruited locally going there and just dominating. So that's cool. And also one of my daughter's college teammates' sister, Allie McHugh, is a senior swimmer on the women's swim team at Penn State, and she won the national championship for Division I in the 1650 free, which is the mile. And she'll be heading up to Wisconsin to train for the Olympic trials, and more than likely will be on the Olympic team competing in that event and probably the 800 meter as well. So she's a very talented swimmer. My daughter swam against her this year, got smoked. And she knew that she was gonna. This is just a different level when you have Olympic level talent. So it was fun to see my daughter compete against somebody like that, but you get very in awe of the talent when you see it live. So my man, Brandon. Brandon is a Chester County resident, Penn State grad. He played for Joe Paterno at Penn State, graduated in 97, I believe.
Yep.
He was a 3-year starter, defensive tackle, dominated in the Outback Bowl in 97, was the defensive MVP, correct?
Yep.
And graduated, went on to go and play 9 years pro ball, mostly in the NFL, but he did have a little stint overseas in NFL Europe. Then he became a coach. He coached at Westchester for a bunch of years, Temple, the UFL team, a couple other places. And now he's currently doing broadcasting and hosts a podcast out in State College that is very, very successful. So without further ado, my man, Brandon Noble. What's up, buddy?
Hey, man, I appreciate you having me on. I'm excited. I've been following you, your kind of little journey putting this thing together, and I'm a little bit ahead of you in it. That I started a little bit before you, but I'm glad it's finally my turn to be on your show.
I love it, man. And it's, you know, we've known each other probably 6 or 7 years now, and we became a lot closer after we went to a conference together not together, but at the same conference in Baltimore. And I got to hear you speak, and I got to hear you share your story, which was a pretty cool story, which I didn't know existed. I didn't know that part. I knew Brandon Noble, the football player, and Brandon Noble, the dad, but I didn't know a lot of the backstory. So I'm going to ask one question, as I always do. It's the same question. I just changed the name. Who is Brandon Noble?
Man, that's a good question. And you
caught me.
You know what's crazy, Matt, is like if you'd asked me that question, it's funny how it changes, right? And if you'd asked me that question 15 years ago, I was a football player. If you'd asked me that 5 years, I was a football coach. I think the thing that I know that I am more than anything else is I'm a husband and a father. Those are the two things that I think I take the most pride in doing and being. And I'm also, man, I'm going to turn 45 in about 10, 13 days, something like that.
Hold on. When's your birthday?
April 10th.
Mine's April 6th. So happy birthday.
Happy birthday. You know, and I'm in a weird spot in my life, man. And you heard me talk at Marcus's thing, and I've basically been a football player my entire life. I mean, up until or involved in football until I was 40 years old. And so I've spent the last 4 football seasons outside of that world to an extent. And I'm really trying to figure out who I am. But I think at the end of the day, it comes back to, you know, I'm Mary Kate's husband, and I'm Connor, Grace, and Jackson's dad. You know, and I still spend a lot of time around the game that I love and that was so good to me. But I'm kind of trying to find myself, which is definitely didn't expect to be in this position at this point in my life. It's not all bad. It's not all good, but it's definitely one that, you know, is requiring some work, but I'm good at work. So that's not a big deal.
That's a lot of people, especially when you get to the middle of your life, right? We're kind of at the 50-yard line right now in our lives. hopefully. But not everybody gets to the 50-yard line when they almost didn't make it to the 35-yard line, right? And I think a good place to start, because it affected everything in your life. It affected your home life. It affected your career. It affected everything. And I think it's just a really good place to just start, is to talk about the struggle and that you had with MRSA.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it definitely was the curveball that kind of sent me on the path that I'm on now. There's no doubt about that. You know, I had gotten to the point in the NFL where I was an established guy. I'd signed a 4-year free agent deal with the Redskins worth, what today is laughable in NFL money, but back then it was good. It was and it was good money no matter what. But like in NFL terms now, it's ridiculous how little I got paid. But I signed a 4-year deal. I kind of got to the point where I was comfortable is not the right word, but I really felt like I belonged. And then I just started having these health problems. And so I got to Washington, second preseason game. I blow my knee out. I tear my ACL, my MCL, my PCL, and dislocate my kneecap. And I actually came back from that. So the great thing about that, I'm a glass half full guy most of the time. And the great thing about that injury was it happened in August, like the second week of August. So I had an entire year, a full 12 months to get ready for the next year. And I was able to do that. And I came back the following year, which would have been 2004. And I played in all 16 games. I was a starter again by week 8 or 9, playing great football, and felt really good about my goal had been to play for 10 years. And I got to 10 active years, right? So my first, you mentioned NFL Europe, they don't count as active years. So my first 2 years were there and on practice squads. And then I had 7 years active. But basically what happened was I ended up just getting a little kind of maybe a meniscus tear. Something popped in my right knee, a little bit of a floater in there. And I was, almost 30 years old. So, let's just go in and kind of change the tires, right? And so they went in and they cleaned me out and came home and was fine. I mean, I was up. I was off the sticks. I was ready to go back to work out. And they pulled the stitches out one day at Redskin Park and woke up the next morning. I had this little kind of quarter-sized hot spot on my knee, and it felt like somebody was taking a blowtorch to it. And that was, being a football player, you're kind of taught that those things go away, right? Your pain tolerance is really high. You're willing to, at that point, again, I am willing to do anything and everything to stay in the league. So, give me some Keflex, make me feel better, and I'm going to be fine, and it'll go away. Next thing I know, and I don't even know, I'm unconscious on my sofa as my daughter's second birthday party is convening on my house on a Saturday. So this was like a Thursday that the infection or the hot spot showed up. So I spent Friday at home. And then as I'm at home, my leg just turns into this giant red trunk, and it just swells from my groin to my ankle. I mean, there was no knee; it was just straight down, and it's kind of turned into that dimply, gross cellulitis kind of look that you get. And so I'm in and out of consciousness now on this Saturday morning on my sofa, in a pair of shorts. As families coming into town and, friends, everybody's showing up, and my mother-in-law comes to the door, and then she comes in and she walks in. She's a nurse, and she looks at me, and then she looks at my wife, and she says, "Mary Kay, we got to get him to the hospital right now." And she saved my life. I mean, at the end of the day, they took me to a doctor and to the emergency room. I don't remember any of this. I was in and out, and then when I got to the ER, they obviously jammed me full of morphine. So I don't remember much of this, but my parents were actually in town for my daughter's birthday party. The birthday party proceeded without me. You don't mess with your daughter's second birthday party. So that went on. But I got to the hospital, and the doc was like, "Look, if you'd have waited another 12 to 24 hours, we'd probably be cutting your leg off to keep you alive. And there's a chance that wouldn't have worked," right? So it was like, that's how close I was at that point. And they said, "You have MRSA." And at that point, it was 2005. now the spring of '05. No one really knew what that was. And you'd started to see a couple guys in the NFL get it. I was one of the first. It's not something that I'm happy about, but it's kind of where I was at the time. Spent about 7 days in the hospital. It was touch and go initially, and they cut me open, flushed me out, and basically every morning they came in and checked my knee to see if I was going to have to go in and have surgery again because they didn't know if they'd gotten it all out of me. And thankfully they did. So I went home. You go home with MRSA. What MRSA is, I guess we probably should have explained that, is the staph. It's a staph infection that's resistant to 90% of medications or most of the normal medications. So they put you on the super ones, right? Like the do not break glass kind unless there's an emergency. And that's what this is. And so I'm on vancomycin, which is this super, super heavy antibiotic. I've got a PICC line like right on the inside of my arm that I came home with. My wife's given me, an IV every couple hours at home. And it's the same thing. It's like, look, every day you kind of got to check in. We got nurses coming over to the house, and I've got a 3-year-old and a 2-year-old. And so I wasn't able to lift for a while. I lost a ton of weight because these antibiotics, it's not chemotherapy, but it's like a step below chemo. Like it kills everything in your body. So I don't eat. I don't want to move. I just laid in my recliner. That was it. I went from probably 305 to 265, which is not good for what I did. Like my profession, 305 was kind of what you needed to be. So, but I'm able to come back, right? Again, jokingly, I said, I'm good at work, right? I know how to work hard. I know how to kind of put myself back together and do what I need to do, especially physically. Sometimes I'm not the best worker when it comes to some other stuff, but yard work, that kind of work, not my thing. But weight room, getting ready to play football, I can do that. So I came back. I got ready for camp. I'm going back. I make it to camp. I go through preseason. And the day before, we were opening up with the Bears in the 2005 season at home. The Thursday practice, it's kind of a walkthrough. I'm jogging, and something pops in my left knee. My left knee is the one that's reconstructed. I just had the MRSA in the right knee, so I was overcompensating on a bad leg, right? So my right leg was hurt, but my left leg had been wrecked. And so I ended up with a bone bruise on the inside of the knee, right? So the knee went like this because when they put me back together, they weren't quite able to get everything tight enough when they reconstructed it. So I got a bone bruise on the inside of my knee. Long story short, I end up on IR again. The bone bruise won't go away. My knee keeps swelling. They're draining it. They're pulling just these giant, 100 cc's of fluid out of my knee at a time. It's not going away. Finally, the doc goes, I'm just going to give you a cortisone shot to maybe get the inflammation down and give you a little lube in there. So there's not, a lot of rubbing on the bone, the bruise. He gives me a shot. Next day, I start feeling sick again. I go and my leg starts getting red. I start feeling like I had the flu. I know what this is. I just did this. So I go and I see the doc. And me and the doctor didn't really get along, but but that's a whole nother story. So I'm driving home. I call my agent. I say, what should I do? He goes, what did the doctor say? I said, the doctor said I should have surgery tonight. And he said, well, you should probably drive yourself to the hospital. So I call my wife. I say, sweetheart, I'm going down to the hospital. They're going to cut me open. They're going to have surgery. I probably have another MRSA infection. So I think I went home, turned around, drove back to the hospital, go in, cut me open, flush my knee out. The next morning, this was like a Thursday night. Friday morning, Mary Kate comes into the hospital and gives birth to our third kid, Jackson, and she beats me out of the hospital. So I'm in the hospital. We had some great pictures. Like that's one of those ones, like it's like Mary Kate in bed, looking all fresh. She just gave birth. She's got this little baby. And me like looking like death, right? I'm pale, I've got this big beard. I haven't cut my hair in like years. I've got like IVs in me. I've got my leg up in the air. It was a mess. But so I get the MRSA. I have to go home with another PICC line in, and like at this point, I'm just like I'm gassed, right? I'm exhausted, and I end up just kind of laying around. So the second time, I'd had some reactions to the vancomycin. So the second time around, they gave me kind of a cocktail of antibiotics as opposed to just one super strong one. And it jacked my system up. And got about a week, 2 weeks later, all of a sudden I start having this back pain. And I think I'm having back spasms or, some sort of lockup because I'm not doing anything. I'm literally sitting in a recliner all day long. And I'm having a real tough time breathing and I can't get up and all these things. And so the Redskins give me some, so I go into Redskin Park when this is starting. They give me this like massage and they kind of work my back out. They give me some Keflex, not Keflex, a muscle relaxer and pain pills. Right? Now you just take this and it'll go away. So I'm popping pain pills and muscle relaxers like all night, this one night. And I cough and I can't breathe. And finally, like, I don't know, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, man, I cough up just this golf ball sized clot. And I'd thrown multiple pulmonary embolisms into my lungs. And I was on the verge of dying again. And I waited like 2 days. And so finally, my wife calls the trainers. The trainers come pick me up. I can't even walk to the car. Like, I can't get enough oxygen into my body to walk. I'm literally, I'm asphyxiated. Like, I can't breathe. And get to the hospital, like they throw me into the, ICU or whatever it is and start pumping me full of blood thinners and keeping an eye on me. And I'm breathing into all these tubes. And they did some scans and like the bottom quarter of each of my lungs had died because I sat there with these blood clots in my lungs for like 3 days, thinking they'd go away. And so I spent 7, 8, 9 days in the hospital. Again, now my wife has a 3-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a newborn, like a month-old child, and she's dealing with me too. And
did she hate? She had to hate you.
She's a trooper, man. She definitely was not happy with me, and the pecking
you didn't
order,
cause it, but
exactly. The pecking order in the house was definitely children, dogs, Brandon, and so I'm in the hospital. And the doc comes in and says, look, you're going to have to be on blood thinners for a year. Can't play football on blood thinners, not because of cuts, but because of bleeding on the brain, right? Basically, my job description was slam your head into the guy in front of you 60 times a game and a day, basically. So I said, well, all right, what do we do? And he said, well, we can take screens. You're in the hospital. We can cut you open, put screens in your arteries or veins, whichever one comes back up. To catch blood clots and you'll be fine. So like in my head, like I was like, all right, I'm in the hospital, might as well. And Mary Kate, my wife, happened to be in the hospital in the room, and she looked at the doctor and she was like, look, he's done. He's not playing football ever again. And that's how I retired. I mean, it was just like bam, right? It was just, but and look, that's what it was going to take to get me to stop playing football, though. Right? It was, whatever you believe in, something was telling me it was time to be done, right? Like I tore my ACL, my MCL, my PCL, dislocated my kneecap. I kept playing, right? I had a MRSA infection that almost killed me. I kept playing, right? Like eventually, like it got to the point where somebody had to stop me, and it was my wife, thankfully. And so then all of a sudden, your contracts in the NFL aren't guaranteed. So I left a lot of money on the table. The plans that we had for that money are no longer, available. So next thing you know, we had started building a home up in Chester Springs where we live now, which had I made that extra money wouldn't have been so unaffordable. But now all of a sudden it's not someplace that we could probably live for a long time because of those things. So everything's been thrown for a loop. And at the same time, like I'm just happy to be alive. So it's just kind of weird. And, then you realize I'm never playing football again, right? So it's all these things that I'm going through. It was a really bizarre time. I'm very bizarre is probably not the right word. It was a hard time. I mean, I'm very fortunate that I had my family, right? I've got an amazing woman that I'm married to, and at the time I had 3 toddlers. They're 3 wonderful people, but that gave me something else because up until marrying Mary-Kate and starting to have children, like football had been my life from the time I was, definitely since my freshman year of high school, but like probably since I was about 4 years old. So like it had been my sole focus, which is why I got to where I got. But having Mary-Kate and the kids there definitely lessened the blow of not being able to do what I love to do more than anything else. And look, I'm not gonna lie, I haven't played football, and I retired in 2005, 2006. If somebody said, "Hey man, you can go play football tomorrow," they probably wouldn't even have to pay me that much. I mean, I know that I would physically fall apart, but like that's how I miss it. I miss it every day. It's an incredible thing to be able to do, to really, again, having some perspective on it now with time. Like I accomplished something pretty damn special. And I was also able to do something that I truly, truly love to do for a long time and make a very good living at it, which a lot of people don't get to do. And that's one thing that I'm learning now that I'm out of football is like, holy smokes, like, what do I do that I really love to do? So I coached football for 8 years. And like you said, I started out at Westchester. Mary-Kate, my wife, basically found me the job. I think she was just tired of having me around the house, and she needed me out. I coached at Westchester with Bill Zwan and those guys down there. Absolutely loved it. Had a great time, but got the bug because I really enjoyed it. And so then I took a job in the UFL, which was a complete circus. And that fell apart while I was there. Like literally the league, like they just called us on like a Monday and they're like, "Oh, that's it. Championship game next week." They were supposed to be, I think we were week 5. And they were supposed to be a 10-week season. And they're like, "All right, we're out of money. That's it. We're not doing this anymore. Goodbye. Good luck." So I was fortunate enough, though, the guy that I worked with there, Joe Moglia, who was the CEO of TD Ameritrade, a really, really amazing story in itself. I met him through a mutual friend, and he got the head job at Coastal Carolina. I went with him as the D-line coach, moved my family from Chester Springs to Myrtle Beach, to Murrells Inlet, which again, you'd think is a good move, right? But Mary-Kate and the kids weren't really happy. I enjoyed it, but they're not happy. So in turn, I'm not happy. And I got an opportunity to come back to Temple with Matt Rule and his staff, which I thought was a no-brainer, a great idea. And, it's a bump up in level. It's a bump up in pay. It's a bump up in facilities. And it got my family right back to where we wanted to be. My wife is originally from Delaware County. She's from Upper Darby. She went to school at Prendy, grew up out in that area, Drexel Hill. And so we were moving back here. My kid, it was literally like my wife and kids lived in Myrtle Beach for 9 months. It was like, that was it. Boom, boom. Came back, worked at Temple, realized pretty quickly that my coaching style and kind of what I believe in didn't marry up with Matt's. And Matt was a grinder, still is a grinder. I would go to work on Sunday and come home on Thursday. And again, Temple's downtown Philly. I'm in Chester Springs. It's a drive, but again, no reason to sleep at the office except for the fact that we're working all day. And again, going back to what I started with, like I'm a husband and a father first, and I was not able to do that while coaching football. And so I stepped away from it at 40, I guess I was 41, literally stepped away. For me, I just turned 40. And for the first time in my entire life, had no plan, had no idea what I was going to do, and had no idea, like literally no idea. Like you can tell I still don't have any idea. And that's where I am. And so that MRSA, where that started, basically took my career, spun it on its head, which in turn kind of took all of my plans and spun them on its head too. And I've been trying to figure it out ever since.
So, first of all, I didn't even have to be here for this show. You dominated the first third of this, to half of the show. I don't even need to ask any questions. It was amazing. Great job on that. But I do have some questions, and there's so many ways I can go with this because you had like 4 or 5 really good nuggets that I want to know more about. First and foremost, I'm coming up on a time period where I'm going to have to retire from police. 26 years doing this. At some point in time, I'm not going to do it anymore. And And while I'm excited for that to happen, I don't know how I'm going to feel not getting up and putting on a uniform and driving a police car every day. When you don't get to choose your ending, when you don't get to choose your exit strategy, when you don't get to create your own path out, emotionally, that had to be difficult. But in your situation, it was probably a mixed emotion. You were like, "Oh my God, thank God I'm alive."
Yeah.
And then, holy shit, I'm never going to play football again. This sucks.
Yeah.
So, like, where were you emotionally, and how did that affect your home life, your relationships with your wife and kids? And did you find it to be a journey that, when it's all said and done, made you a better husband and father? You know what I'm saying?
That's a great question. I think, kind of like you were saying, because of the way that I left the league, like almost dying, I don't know that it really hit me until later, right? I mean, it was literally like I was thankful to be alive, and it was such a whirlwind that it wasn't like this, like, oh, I'm going to retire, or, oh, I got cut, or it was just like, wow, right? And that was it. Oh, you're almost dead, and you're not going to be able to play football anymore. Figure it out. And so yeah, I mean, look, but it was tough too, because it is definitely, no one leaves football the way they want to. Very, very few guys ever walk away. Like, look at what Gronk did just a couple of days ago. I thought was amazing, right? That guy said, "I'm done." And Jordy Nelson just left. The guys are starting to do it a little bit more, I think. But at the same time, look, Gronk is beat up. The guy's had like 18 back surgeries. He's going to be a mess in about 10 years. Right. But I think that going into coaching cheated that a little bit, right? Like, I talk about my transition out of football more from the perspective of when I was 40, which I think almost made it worse, to be completely honest with you, because I didn't go through it all when I should have. I didn't mourn when I should have. I didn't reflect when I should have. I just kind of pushed it over the side, and I stayed in football. So when I left coaching, that's when it really happened. So I'm kind of still in the thick of it right now. I mean, I really am. And but I do think I'll go back to one of the things that I didn't think of when this all happened. And I went to a former players kind of seminar they called the Bridge to Success, which is a great program that the NFL is finally realizing that, oh, we can't just dump these guys on the side of the road. We got to figure out something to do with them as they transition out. And so I'm at this thing, and it's really cool. You reconnect with all these guys that are just like you, right? Because here's the thing about the NFL, like, when you're done, and it's just like poof, like literally gone. Like, no one reaches out to you. No, especially when I retire. It's just gone. Like, okay, that's it. Next, on to the next one, and that guy's dead, basically. I mean, you just ghost. And that's really hard to deal with. But you're out, and you don't have the connection like you had in college, right? It's a business, it's a job. I'm going to work from 6 a.m. till 6 p.m, and I'm coming home to my wife and kids. That's what everybody else is doing. Whereas in college, right, you all go back and play. When I was in college, it was Xbox or Nintendo and PlayStation 1. I think we had Segas too. But you've got these, you've got these bonds, and so in the NFL you just disappear, and that's hard to deal with when you're used to that camaraderie. But the thing, so going to this thing was really cool. I got to meet a lot of guys and catch up with guys. But one of the questions, and this is terrible with hindsight, because I do consider myself to be a good husband and a good father, but like one of the questions in these group therapy sessions was like, how has this affected your wife, you leaving football? And I was like, shit, I've never even thought of that, right? How has this affected? I don't know. So I came home and asked, right? And it's a scary question. And Mary Kate, again, she's been through a lot with me. And she's dealt with it, and she's like, yeah, I mean, you're definitely not the same person, right? You're moodier, you're up and down, you're kind of lost, and you are. I mean, look, this is the other thing that I realized, right? That when you leave football, no matter how, like, I played for 9 years. You read it. I had the kind of career that you want to have, right? Mine's getting drafted. But like, I considered myself a failure because I wasn't playing football anymore, which is bizarre. Like that is so hard to wrap my head around now. But up until probably 2 or 3 years ago, like I was embarrassed that I wasn't playing football anymore. And and yet I had been to the pinnacle. Like I was in the 0.06% of guys. I mean, I had a legit 7-year career in the NFL. I was a starting defensive tackle in the league. And I considered myself a failure. And at this Bridge to Success program, we talked about that, right? And the guys, and it's a common theme. You really feel like you failed because everybody asks you, oh man, what happened? Why aren't you playing anymore? Especially when you first get out. Oh, well, I blew my knee out, or I did this, or I did that. But it's just something that eats at you because it's not something that you ever get to do again, right? It's not like becoming an author or becoming, a broadcaster or whatever it is, or where you get better with age or experience. Like there's a definitive end to that ability, and when it happens, it's gone. There are no pickup football games. Right. Well, there are, but I'm not allowed to play in those. So yeah, I mean, look, it's been a tough transition, a lot harder than I thought it would be. And like I said, I'm really still kind of going through it because I really just did it when I left coaching, because I kind of hid in football and didn't really kind of explore all of those kind of thoughts and feelings right after I retired. So and it's definitely, changed who I am, and it's definitely I think it's made me more aware of me and my moods and kind of how I interact with my wife and kids. And I do think that the other thing is, figuring out what I really wanted to do. I tried my hand at a few different things, and there were times when I was miserable doing some other things, and I definitely was subconsciously taking that out on my wife and kids, in the way that I treated them and talked to them and acted around them. And it was actually my oldest son that kind of called me on it, which was, really unique kind of thing. And he said something to my wife about kind of basically like, why does dad hate us? Right. And it's like, God, you know what I mean? Like I love my children and my wife more than anything in the entire world. And to think that that's the way that they thought of me is terrible. And it was because I was doing something that I absolutely hated to do, and I won't throw that industry under the bus, but it's definitely been a long kind of 4 years for me that have been, it's good for you to go through it, but it's not fun. There's no doubt about that. It's definitely not fun for anybody.
Well, one thing that's ringing in my ears as you're speaking, and one of the great things about the show is I can sit and listen and just absorb what's being said and really just sort of think about some things. And I went through a really dark period after my brother died, and that really haunted me with depression and guilt and anger and all those things. And it kept me from being successful in relationships. And I was unable to express love and feel love for my wife and my daughter when she was born. Like it was a very all consuming darkness that made me not a good person inside. I was very good at faking it a lot of times, but the hardest thing when you lose, and there's no direct correlation between my brother dying and you almost dying and not playing football, but the process of my purpose, your purpose was playing football. Your purpose was being on the football field and training your body and preparing yourself every day for that type of event. And when that purpose disappears, you have to find a new purpose. You have to repurpose your life, and that search can be can take a long time, and it can take darkness and sadness and but the things that remain true, and it was the same with me. With my wife is the same as yours is, obviously. My children know my story. They know what happened and why I was the way that I was and why I was distant and unable to connect emotionally. And my wife understands now why I went through that and how hard that was, and that I was doing my best to try to get out of it. And when I finally was able to get out of it, my purpose sort of presented itself. And I think the thing that you're searching for is a purpose. Like, what is the God's plan for you that says, Brandon Noble, you were an amazing athlete. You accomplished some insane things that very few people ever get a chance to accomplish. But it's just part of your story.
Yeah.
And it's not an individual moment. Not one of those games is an individual moment. Not one of your accolades was individually itself. It was a process of accumulating games and effort and time and energy and all those things that are part of who you are. And this, your battle with MRSA, your battle with your pulmonary embolisms, your near-death experience, your not being able to be there with your wife when she was having a baby because you're in the middle of having surgery. You know, like all those things add up in your story. And I think when I heard you speak in Baltimore, and I never told you this, but when I heard you speak, you were the best speaker that day.
No, I appreciate that.
Because the only thing about you that was exceptional was your realness. Like, you told a story that was real, that was polished, not planned.
Yeah.
I have yet to write a speech. I've never planned a speech. Every speech may have the same story, but it's told differently every single time. Yeah. And I understood, I could see every detail when you were talking as if I was reading a book and I was able to absorb it. So Matt Cubbler's 2 cents is that's a gift. My mom told me when I wrote, and I don't know if I ever told you, when I came out of my depression, I was given a gift of my brother's clothes made into a quilt, which floored me. Yeah. That night I wrote 26,000 words of memories about my brother, detailed, very, very detailed memories. And they became the basis for my book. And in the book, when anybody says the detail that you write about, that was from that night. 26,000 words is a lot of goddamn words.
That's a lot of words.
And a lot of memories. And what I realized was that when I forgave myself and allowed myself to heal and allowed myself to grieve and go through that process, which was writing all those memories out. Literally, it was like 6 months of therapy and 8 hours of writing. And I realized that my gift, when I told my mom I wrote those words, I said, Mom, what do I do with 26,000 words of memories? She said, you write a book. And I said, Mom, I haven't read a book since Animal Farm in ninth grade. I don't know how I can write a book. And she said, son, my mom's a retired English teacher. And she says, son, everybody has a story to tell, but not everybody can tell a story.
Yeah.
And you can tell a story. You spent 24 minutes telling a story that didn't have any breaks of what do I say next? And it was brilliant. And it's not because it was, you're not Tony Robbins, but that's why you're brilliant. That's why it's brilliant. So I'm not here to stroke you off, but I'm just trying to say what you did for 24 minutes was a gift.
I appreciate it.
And it's something that you can do every day and go back to those moments because it was so emotionally charged and so scary and so raw that I think that's, if I were to be your therapist, I'd say start there. If you're trying to figure out where the hell you need to go, start there.
Right. Yeah, no, that's a great point, man. And I think that's where I've kind of gone. Then, we did meet at the event down in Baltimore, which is about public speaking. And I've always enjoyed storytelling. I've always enjoyed talking to people. And so that's kind of what I've started doing. Right. And my father-in-law, who passed away 3 years ago around St. Patty's Day, I remember he had pulmonary fibrosis, so his lungs were kind of hardening, which is a terrible way to die, over the course of years. And I remember him grabbing me at one point and being like, look, man, like, go back into broadcasting. Right? He's like, that's what you want to do. That's what you're good at. Like, just do it. And, there was no way to make money right then and there being a broadcaster, right? Like, that doesn't work like that. So, but I was like, here's a guy who I respect a lot, who always had a ton of great advice for me and great perspective. just basically telling me, like, get your head out of your ass and go do what you're good at doing and go do what you love to do. Because it lets me talk about football, lets me stay in that world. And what I've done is I've kind of made this little thing, right? I've got the show at Penn State, which is something I love to do. I love that place. Like, it is a second home for me. I love the people up there. I love telling those stories. And look, I do enjoy sharing my story. I think that's one of the cool things. I'm the defensive coordinator at the high school now here at Downingtown. And I love working with those kids, besides the fact I get to coach my own kid, which is amazing sometimes. Ask him. But I get to use the things that I've gone through to help these kids, right? And it's that perspective, just like my father-in-law was kind of able to give me a little bit of help. But yeah, man, storytelling is definitely something that I enjoy doing. And it's funny though too, because if you were to ask my wife and kids, like, I am the quietest person in my entire house. Like, I very rarely talk. So they're probably all upstairs listening to me right now. But yeah, no, I appreciate that, and it is something that it's therapeutic. Like you said, writing those words, right? I mean, anytime I get to go tell my story, man, it's a little bit of therapy for me, and you got to get it out off your chest.
I think that's for someone who's gone through such a traumatic 2 years from 04 to almost 06.
Yeah,
that was a bunch of surgeries, a bunch of infections, nearly dying 3 times. Those things, they weigh on your soul, and it's that why when my brother died, I spent 13 years angry at God, saying, why would you dare take the most amazing human being on the planet away from me,
right,
and leave me by myself, when I was a complete dick. Like, I was the anti. I was uncoachable. I was unteachable. Everything. I knew the answer to everything. Screw everybody. I sold drugs. I stole stuff. I wasn't, but I had a 4.0 and I had a full ride to the Coast Guard Academy. Like, I was like this mix of good and evil. But my brother was 100% pure.
Yeah.
He was autistic and he didn't have a mean bone in his body. So I couldn't wrap my head around why.
Right.
And I'm sure in your world, you just signed that contract. Life was just about to be amazing.
Yeah.
Like, you had it all set up. Like, all that hard work finally was coming to fruition, and the not for long league that never is real.
Yeah.
And I'm sure the why questions happened.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. And I think there's a saying in football. It's you die your first death. You're dead. Like, that guy's gone, and he'll never come back. Once you leave that locker room, and for everybody, that's one of the things that when I talk to football teams, when I talk to football players, like, look, you got to prepare yourself for that. And I thought I was prepared, and it's like preparing yourself for having kids or getting married, man. There's no way to prepare but to do it. So, like, and that's terrible, because everybody handles it differently. And so when you go through it, whenever that is, and I think that the longer that you do something and then you're out of it, the worse it is, right? So, like, if you stop playing football after high school, yeah, it stinks. And look, I watch these kids. I've been at Downtown East for 2 years now, and whatever that last game is for those seniors, it's emotional, right? They cry, like, they hug each other, they tell each other they love each other. And my high school buddies, we were the same way. And then you go to college, and it's the same thing, because you invest so much of yourself into that game. You have to be good at it. And mentally, physically, emotionally, the things that you put yourself and the people around you through to be good at that is taxing. And so you have those bonds, but then it ends for guys in college too. And I was able to play until I was almost 31 years old. And that's a long, long time. And so when I died my first death, like, that was a long, and if you tie the coaching in, it's I was 40 when I finally did that. And it was really difficult to deal with, a lot harder than I expected. And so I try and use that kind of, look, guys, like, it's going to happen. It's definitely going to happen. And it doesn't matter who you are, you miss it. And it's really, really hard to go through, because you have to become a completely different person, because you have sunk everything into being that thing, right? And that's one of the great things that I learned at that Bridge to Success program was, like, you weren't a football player, right? You're somebody that happened to be very good at football, and it's not the opposite, right? And that's why you were there, which again is I don't know if I really understand that, but I get it and make it. But at the same time, like you kind of have to be that to do that, and it is emotional, and it is you're dead. Like that guy's dead, and he never comes back. And for me, like you said, hopefully I'm somewhere in the middle of this whole journey. But that's a long time to not be able to do the thing that you've loved to do your whole life, and it's difficult to deal with.
Well, let's transition a little bit. I know I'm interested. I know a couple of people have, when they knew you were coming on, wanted to know, obviously Penn State's come under scrutiny over the last few years with a lot of things, right? A lot of bad publicity. It's starting to make it a resurgence. I think Coach Franklin's doing a great job of getting the program back, and I think the coach before him, the guy that's now with the
Bill O'Brien.
I think he did a tremendous job during that transitional phase when things were pretty bad. But back in the 90s, that was like the heyday.
Yeah,
like that was like Penn State was on the map every year in contention for a title. What was it like being a football player at State College, which is literally in the middle of the mountains of Pennsylvania, surrounded by a little town, but basically the college runs everything? What was it like to be the man on a Penn State football team under Joe Paterno?
Look, it was an amazing experience. I mean, it was it's hard. It's kind of like anything else, right? When you're going through it, I don't think you really appreciate it as much as you should, which is human nature. I could say that I think probably my whole football career, but it's a special place, and especially if you're a football player there, and at that point in time, I was there 92 to 97, and we won a lot of football games. I was on the 94 team that went undefeated and got screwed out of a national title because of the way that they did things, and won the Rose Bowl, and I won a Rose Bowl, a Fiesta Bowl, an Outback Bowl, a Citrus Bowl. It was a great run. I got a great degree. My best friends are from there. I met my wife there. Penn State is a special place, but being a football player there, and the environment has changed a little bit with Coach Franklin and kind of the new college football and the show and the spectacle that it's become. I don't think that's a bad thing. But to be able to walk out on that football field and lift your arms up in the air and get 110,000 people to cheer is a bit of an ego rush, man. I mean, there's definitely it's a pretty cool feeling to be able to do that. And look, football has been an amazing deal for me, and being able to play at Penn State's a big part of that. And there's a reason I went there. I mean, I got recruited by Michigan, South Carolina, Georgia Tech, Virginia Tech. I mean, you name it, up and down the East Coast. And to go play for Joe was something that was really special. I got recruited in 91. So, coming off of, the 80s, which was a super, they won 2 national titles kind of while I was growing up and watching college football. And then to go play for Coach was a special deal. And it was hard. I mean, I think that was the other thing. Like, it fit kind of who I was, a blue collar. It's about working. It's about doing the right thing. But it was difficult too. I mean, look, playing for that guy, especially those first couple of years in the program where they kind of break you down, it was there are a lot of phone calls home, man. Did I make the right decision? Should I transfer back to Virginia Tech or go to JMU or something along those lines? But it's a really unique place. I think it's it's the best place on a Saturday in the fall anywhere in America in my book. And like I said, I've got a small company up there. I go up there every week. I still consider, like I said, it's a place that I consider home, to me. And I stuff too. There's always those little stories. I was not a great student on the student athlete side of things, but I got through it with a lot of help, for lack of a better term, and not the wrong kind of help either. But people are willing to go out of your way for you because of who you are, and whether that's fair or not, I don't know. But like, I remember when I started dating Mary Kate, and we I remember going to the bookstore with her for the first time, right? And I'd never had to do that. Like, I had never gone to the bookstore to buy books. And going in the bookstore with her and like walking around and first of all, looking at how much those things cost, right? So I'd gone to school for free, right? Like all my food, all my books, everything. And you look at your whole, man, and it was like a used book, right? So it was like, $110 for used psych book or whatever it is. And like, so for us, they basically at the end of camp or at the beginning of the winter semester, they pulled a trailer into the parking lot, right? And this trailer, they just popped the back open and there's some guy in there, probably a football manager with a list, right? And okay, here's Noble, boom. And he just handed me a box. And that box had all my books in it. Everything that I needed was right there in that box for the whole semester, right? Like here I am, like walking around the bookstore with my wife, like looking for a cheap book that has the right notes in it that, and you've got to do this for 6 classes. I just get this little book and this little box and it's got all my books in it. It's got my schedule in it. Back then it actually had a map, like a paper map, because you needed that to get around campus. But that was kind of what being a football player was, right? It is it's a special thing to be able to do. And there are definitely, anybody tells you there are not perks that come along with it is lying right to your face, because you are definitely treated differently, on campus.
My buddy, and I don't know if you know Joe Batista or not.
Mm-hmm.
So he was on the show, I don't know, maybe 3-4 weeks ago. Great guy. His story is, of Penn State are very similar to yours. His love of that area is very similar to yours. He obviously was a nice hockey guy and helped bring that brand new, beautiful.
It's amazing, right? Yeah.
To be. But I just think, I didn't go to college and I didn't have that. I didn't have that experience. I went in the military, which is a very similar brotherhood thing where, I left the military and became a cop right away. So I went from one uniform to another. So I never had to transition out of that technically.
Right.
But the brotherhood that I had with my friends, luckily, my best friend from the time we started the military together is still my best friend today. And his oldest daughter is getting married in June. They'll be going out for the wedding. So it's, I get how that's important. But I think in life, everything takes effort, right? Relationships take effort, and maintaining those friendships and staying connected and not losing touch and all that stuff. It's work, and it's work that if it means something in your heart, then it's work you put in. And I think for me personally, just being able to, Facebook has literally been the single greatest connector. If you use it properly, it can be the greatest tool for business. It can be the greatest tool for friendships and relationships. It can also be misused and create a lot of drama. But I try to avoid that. But it's one of those things where, a buddy of mine from the Army, who I haven't spoken to in probably 6 years, my phone rings and I didn't recognize his number, so I let it go to voicemail. And it was one of my buddies from the Army who I haven't spoken to in 7. He's like, yeah, I wanted to connect again. I'm like, cool. So, it's one of those things. Life is just one of those. It's literally the journey. If you sit back and allow it to become something of almost like a movie, where you can't wait to see what the next scene is. And I wake up every day and I want to see what the next scene is. Like, I want to know what the director, AKA God, has written for me today. And I'm excited about that.
That's awesome.
And it's not always pretty and it's not always successful, but at the end of every single day, I'm thankful that I had the chance to live another scene in my movie of life. So as we're winding down the podcast, if you had a chance to write the rest of your movie script, where would you see yourself in 10, 15 years with your wife, your kids, working? Like, how would you paint that script for yourself?
10, 15 years, man. That's, I kind of take it day to day after, being what I've gone through. But, look, that at that point, like I hope that I've established myself in the broadcasting world professionally. That to me is kind of where I want to go. I love calling games on Saturdays, and I'm close. I've been doing it for a couple of years now, and I'm getting good feedback and good all that stuff. Just being able to make that jump and do that. But really, at the end of the day, man, I want to find something and be doing something that I truly love to do. that I truly have a passion for, because I was really fortunate to be able to do that for the first half of my life. Like, I loved what I did. And really, I really did. I'm not just saying that because of money or because of prestige. Like, I loved playing football, and I got to do it for a long time. So hopefully I've found whatever that is, right? Look, I hope it's broadcasting, because that's the road that I've started down. And I put a lot of time and effort into it over the last couple of years. I've done a lot of stuff for free. I spent a lot of time away from my wife and kids to build myself up in this business. I hope that obviously my wife and children are all happy and healthy and still want to hang out with me here and there. And God, 10, 15 years. So my oldest boy's 17, right? So like that would make him almost 30 or 30. And that's hard to wrap my head around just in general. So hopefully maybe a grandkid here or there, but I'm in no rush there if they are listening to me upstairs. But yeah, I mean, look, man, just really at the end of the day, I really appreciate being able to do what you love to do, right? And especially if you can make a living doing it. I mean, that's the key, right? It's not a hobby. Like, if you're truly blessed enough to go to work every day and it's not work, right? It's what you love to do and you get paid for that. Hopefully that's where I am. Like I said, hopefully at that point, all of my children are also out of the house and have not come back. And
it seems like you're yelling that
maybe
for someone to hear.
Right up there, yeah. And my wife and I are, kind of enjoying the second half of things. I've really enjoyed being a father, but at the same time, like, my wife is my best friend, and I'm looking forward to kind of having her back to myself again, for lack of a better term. The first part of our relationship was just us. And then we spent a lot of time with these little people that we created, and we love them very much. But I am sure that there will be a lot of rescued puppy dogs. And if there are not grandchildren yet, there will be soon, and we'll be wherever they are. Doing what I love to do and hanging out with my wife and kids is kind of the goal.
Well, if I had a wish for you, it would be that. And then I would also wish that what other people's journeys have value to, your journey has a value to someone. Your story has a value to someone. Someone's going to hear you speak and say, that resonated, and I took something from it that I'm going to use in my life, and it's going to make me a better person. So my wish for you in the next 10 to 15 years is that you write a book and you tell your story. Because I think it's a really great perspective where on the outsiders that have never been around, if someone's never been around a professional athlete and know what it's like to get there and then have it all taken away and what it feels like, that being the first death part when you leave the league, that's real. I know I've talked to plenty of players who want to get back into that feeling of the locker room and that camaraderie and then, the notoriety and all the things that come with it. But I think sharing that story is going to help another player potentially. If you write that book, if you get out and speak. And I think getting with the alumni and getting with people that are in the league in college and just preparing the path. When I share my story, it's not because my story's better than anybody else's or any more sad or any more painful. It's just that I'm up there sharing it.
Right.
And when I spoke on Monday night at the Elks Lodge in Pottstown for their annual banquet, a woman came up to me and said, I went through something similar, but I wouldn't have the courage to say that in front of people. And you having that courage has given me courage to share it. And I think that just a one person out of a one speaking event that now has the courage to share her story with someone else that will help that other person that's that journey component. That's what life is. It's I tell people all the time, life is meant to be lived for others so that when you die, your legacy is what is left. And that's what people remember. And they will refer to you and the things that you accomplished and the things that you did for others is how you will be remembered. And I'll leave you with this. I spoke at a marketing agency a few months back. And the CEO of the company, I was asking everybody, why do they live? What is their purpose in life? Who do they live their life for? And he said a really cool quote. He said he had heard from someone else speak that you die twice in your life. The first time when they put you in the ground, the second time when your name is uttered for the last time. And I don't ever want to get to the point where my name's not uttered. I don't ever want me to die a second time. And so what I do with the dash of my life is going to ensure that that never happens. So when I wake up every day excited, it's because that's what I'm living for. I'm living to get to the point when I take my last breath, that's the only time that I die. And that's important.
Yeah.
In my world, that's important. And I want for you to have that clarity in your journey and where you're heading, so that it's not a concern how you're making money, but the concern is, how do I wake up every day and build that lasting legacy so that you never have to worry about when your name's never spoken again. So awesome, that would be what I would wish for your next 10 to 15 years.
I hope that happens.
Well, I'll be watching, so we'll see what happens. Well, brother, I appreciate you being on the show, man, and sharing. It was so insightful, and I know everybody loved it. We kept a really strong audience the entire time. And I just really appreciate you making the time. I know that you've got a lot of crap going on, so I appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Hey, look, anytime. I've enjoyed watching you get this started, because I met you when you were first thinking about it, and I will come on anytime you want me on, no doubt about that. And looking forward to doing it again and watching more of these episodes, man. This is a good thing. I appreciate it.
Thanks, brother. Don't go anywhere. We're going to talk offline. But everybody, thank you again for watching another episode of the 2 Dates and a Dash podcast with my special guest, Brandon Noble. I appreciate you guys watching. I appreciate you caring about what it is I'm doing. I appreciate you caring about the people that are coming on. If anybody wants to watch prior episodes, you can go on my website, mattcubbler.com, my YouTube channel, anywhere their podcasts are, and obviously on Facebook as well. So God bless, and for God's sakes, be kind to one another out there.